The objective of this tutorial is to close out the balance of the assignment. So we're going to look at detail creation, annotations and multi-leaders, general notes, the window and door schedule, and finally how to print a PDF and close out the assignment. So we'll go through these one by one on these pages. So the general notes we'll come back to shortly, but what we are going to do is you should have something that's coming together like this more or less on your floor plans, elevations and section. And we're going to take a closer look now at the details and how they're created, as well as the window and door schedule. So the first thing to think about with the detail section is there's essentially 3 drawings in this space. You got 1 for the wall to ceiling detail, 2 for the roof detail, and 3 for the subfloor and wall detail. With the window and door schedule, it's essentially just one drawing area, so one viewport, and that's what we're getting at. This is 1, 2, and 3 viewports. One viewport, just as on these on this sheet, you had 3 viewports. You had 1 for the elevation, 2 for the floor plan, and 3 for the section. With the general notes, it's just one big viewport. Okay, so how do we create these details to begin with? I'm going to go into AutoCAD, into my file. Okay, and so you've by now marked out where you want your details, essentially, as per the drawings, the example sheets. So what I'm going to do here is nothing that intelligent about it. I'm just going to select everything that's around this box and copy it out to a different area. So I'll just copy it. Let's go below 1, and then I'll do the next one. And then finally, okay, something looks like this. Now, the next thing to do, and it's really the easy part, is just a matter of cleaning up the details itself. So I'm going to focus on which one of these details that I'll do. I'll work on, say, this one here, number 3. The other 1 and 2, you'll use the exact same workflows to create those details. So with this in mind, I've got my section box or my call out box. I'm going to start by trimming all of the items that I no longer need. So trim, and I can't trim a hatch, keep that in mind. I'm going to start removing some of these items. That looks pretty good. I need to redraw or rehatch the ground. Although having said that though, what I might do is I might just keep it all in there for now. And I'm going to get rid of the section box itself, or the call out box, and make sure the rest of that looks okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. Now, before I continue, I'm going to start placing these, laying these out on the sheets, and that's important. So I need to create another sheet, and you guys know how to do that now. So move or copy, create a copy. I'll go to the plans elevations. Here's my copy, drag it across, rename that, and let's just call this 02-details. Okay, now we already have 3 viewports here, which is helpful. We just need to move them around. So I'm going to take this viewport and I'm going to snap this back to, let's say, around about halfway through the page. I'm going to remove the call out, or the names of the drawings, or some of them. I'll leave the 3 of them that are left. I'm going to bring this down to say there. I'm going to move this further back, this one further in, now this up to here. Alright, so let's double click, I'll zoom in, there's our detail. So this one is at 1 to 10, I believe. So I'll change it to 1 to 10. That looks pretty good to me. I'll do something like this. Now you have to, I'm going to rehatch or change the scale of the hatch, because the hatch at the moment is just too big. That's okay, double click out. I'm going to continue referencing my drawing. Okay, so you can see, for instance, that the gap between the stump and the end of the drawing is quite narrow, so I'm going to bring that in a little bit further. You can see that the hatch is a little bit different here. It's got a bit of a shape to it, which I'll show you how to do shortly. And we're going just to underneath the windowsill detail. Okay, so back to here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to move this back to somewhere around there. Okay, so next up, I'm going to move this around. This one was the, I believe that one. Okay, so that was the apex of the roof. Now this one is a little bit different. This is at a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, so let's do something like that. Yep, and then finally the ceiling detail. And this will also be at 1 to 10. Okay, so straight away I can tell that I'm going to need some more space here. So I'll go back into paper space. I'll select this viewport. I'm going to bring this one right down to about here. And I'm going to bring this viewport down to meet it about there. And I'll do something that looks like this. Alright, I can delete some of that. And then I need to grab alright, there we go. That's not bad. Again, there's not really a set way. It's really just a skill, just to sort of visualizing it. So we've got these drawings have to cut off a little bit earlier so we can fit our titles underneath. So let's do that. Just have to move a little bit further up. Something like that. It's very close. Alright, I'll take this and I'll move this a little bit further up. I can't move it that much further up because I've got my stump detail. Same with this one here. I can move this a little bit further up, and then what I'll do is I'll take the title of the drawing and move it a little bit further down. So it's something like that. Okay, cool. Now, back to CAD. So at this point, two things you need to remember. One is that you need to uplift the line weights when going to details. Because the drawings are getting bigger, each of the line weights will no longer work. So if I go back to the details, you'll see that when I zoom in, you can still see the line weights of, say, the stud versus the stud section versus stud projection, but it's nowhere near as definitive as it was prior on a much smaller drawing, or in fact a drawing like 5 times smaller. So this position, or this, what we've got to do now, it's a little bit tedious, but it's about going in and upping the line weights for those blocks. So what I'll do is I'm going to select the block, I'm going to explode the block, and then we are going to recreate this block. So I'll go explode. Okay, so that block's now broken back up. You still have the other blocks to the left, nothing changes there, all the other blocks are still intact. This version has been exploded. I'm going to click on this and change this to a pen 50, and then simply reblock. I'm going to go 90 by 45 millimeter stud underscore. You could go like pen 50, or you could say 1 to 50, or I'm just going to go in here and go pen 50. Pick point, pick that point, and there we go. Okay, so that's another way you can do it. Now, what you can do from here is you can click on the block, and then we could go match properties, and then you could select on these other blocks. Evidently not, actually. So with that block now complete, I've got to go around and replace these blocks, these studs, as before. So I'll just do this one real quick. Oh, it'd help if I kept the other block. What am I doing? Okay, and rotate this block from this point down. Okay, now you'll notice when I go back to the details and I zoom in, you can see that those blocks now, they pop a lot more than before. And I want to just double check. Yep, all good. Same goes for my ground line. So the ground line I'm going to extend out a little bit further. Something like that, and I'll extend it back that way a little bit. Okay, and the ground line, basically everything needs to be lifted up 1 pen weight. So I'll take that, we should make a new one. We'll call this pen 1.5 or something like that. So I'm going to go new layer, A-pen 1.5. And we'll make that a dark purple. And we'll change that to a 1. Let's go over 1.4. Let's see how that goes. That's better. That looks a lot better on the drawing sheet now. Okay, so what else do we have to do? So we've got, it's really just a case now of see and repeat. So we've got a couple of things going on here. So the hatching, for starters, was deleted and then redrawn and rescaled and just carved a little bit differently to give a bit of a different view. Plus, the other thing it does is it means that you have your writing here that's not impacted with the hatching zone. So in order to do that, that's actually much easier than it seems. It's just a case of me, I'm going to delete that. I've still got my original zone that I use to my bounding box of my hatching. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my hatch layer and I'm going to use an arc, and I'm going to go, I could use a start end arc or a 3-point. So let's go, let's see what the start end angle, we'll try this. It's going to move out to here. Start end. I don't like that one. Let's try again. Let's try 3-point. So going to here. 45-degree angle. Oh, that's good. Yep, okay. And then we'll go the other way. Start, end, angle. That's okay. It's not too bad. And let's see. How do we go here? Oh, right. Okay, so it's like one bigger arc. Let's do it again. So let's go. Same arc, 3-point. Once there. Once at the end. And something like that. But we're going to want to fill this a little bit nicer, I think. I'm going to move that back a little bit more. No, I still don't like any of that. Actually, I've got one other idea. I'm going to try this. This might be a little bit easier. Now, you could do it either way. I'm just trying a few other things. Let's do something that looks a little bit different. So I'm going to go like this, down, say 150, in, say, 1,000, and then down. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to use the fillet tool this time. And I'm going to go change my radius. And let's do like say 500. And let's see what this looks like. Not that one. Let's go the other way. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we'll do fillet again. Radius. And this time let's do say 150 and go the other way. That's not too bad. It's okay. But what I will do is I'm going to move all of this a little bit closer in. And then just make sure I move this back out to about there. Alright, and then I'll finish off my hatch zone like that. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So, well, actually I'm going to leave that for now. But what I will do now is I'll go hatch. And I'm just going to click anywhere. I'm just going to click in there so I get my hatch done. Oop, and I'm getting an error saying a closed boundary cannot be determined. Fine, that's okay. Let's find out what's going on. And that's why. Because if that line weight was on, I thought that I was closer than I was. That's okay, so I'll click on this and I'll just move this back to there. And again, hatch. Click, escape, click back on it. And let's go to our patterns. So let's choose earth hatch. We'll move that to a 45-degree angle. We'll make the size, say, 5, which seems quite small, but let's go to our details. Yep, still too small. So I'll double click on that. Let's make that bigger. 10, 15. Yep, I think that works. 15 works. And then same with these, we have to make, oh, I think they're actually okay like that. So that looks all right. Whoops. I'm going to move my drawing name further down. So it looks like that now. That's not too bad. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I can now delete the boundaries. Makes it look much cleaner, the hatch, like that. And now I want to remove some of these. So I'm going to click on this hatch. I'm going to click on remove. And then I'm going to click and then enter. So I'll do that again here. So I'm going to click on the concrete hatch. I'm going to come up to here and say remove. Click on that, and then click on these boundaries of where the hatch was for the other drawing for the section, and then hit enter. And now I'm just left with the hatch that's shown here. Okay. So what else have we got to add? So a lot of this now is actually nowhere near as complicated as it may seem. You've got a dash line for a membrane on the inside of the or the outside face of the stud. You've got weatherboards here, which those weatherboards I think are 175 mil, essentially rectangles. You've got 10mm plasterboard on the inside. We've got a timber skirting. And then we've got tongue and groove flooring, which I think we already have modeled, but we'll double check. Yes, we do. Okay, so I'm going to remove that dash line. There's our tongue and groove flooring. And so we can just keep adding from here. So what I'll start by doing is I'm going to go line. Oops, change my layer. I'll go A pen 18. Line. Start from here. I'm going to come out 10 mil. I'm going to come up to like so. So there's our plasterboard. I'm going to draw a skirting. So I'll come out, say, 18 mil. Come up, say, 100. Come across 18 and then finish that off. And then I'll just fillet this edge, and I'll fill it by, say, 18. One smaller. Fillet, 18, something like that. So there's our skirting board. That's quite easy. All right, now next up, I'm going to pick my a -13, and I'm just going to trace over this wall with that layer. I'm going to select those lines, and I'm just going to move it inwards 5 mil. So you can see there's that dashed line there on the inside. We'll come back to that in a sec. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw insulation. So in your layer stack, you'll have a layer called A Insol 13. So A Architectural Insulation Pen Weight 0.13. So I'll click on that. I'm going to do the same thing again. A line just from center to center. And if you zoom in, you can see you get that hatch or that line pattern, which is the insulation. I'm going to go back to my details, and you'll notice straight away that it already looks much wider than it does in the drawing. And why is that? That has to do with the line type scale and the fact that you're looking at a drawing on a page that is 1 to 10. So it's shrunken down 10 times compared to the drawing that you're seeing here. Because don't forget, in model space, you're seeing this in real size, in actual like physical dimensions. So what we can do here is we can play around with some of these lines as well, these line types. So I'll double click in this view, being very careful not to scroll in and out. I'm going to click on the insulation, and its line type scale is 1.5. Let's change that to 1.7. That makes it a little bit wider. Same with the, if I click on the insulation, we want that to be a bit tighter. I might say I'll make that 1.2, and that looks much better. Go back to paper space, and we've got something that looks like this now. So that's already coming together with much more detail. Now, the weatherboard is really simple. So I'm just going to go back to here. I'll go A pen 18. And we'll go 12, 175. 12, and I'll go like that. Now, next, I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to rotate it just slightly. So what I'm going to do actually is we'll do a different rotation. So I'll select the weatherboard. I'll go rotate, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the base point. So I'll click this point here in the top left-hand corner. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on now reference. Now in the commands bar, I can either type in R or click on reference. And then what that means is I'm going to start here. I'm going to click from this base point. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to finish there, where the right-hand side of the bottom of the weatherboard is. And why have I done that is so when I copy this, essentially I know that this point here will match that point there. You see what I mean? And then what you can do is you can just move that up slightly. Something like that, and that's how you get that overlap. Okay, so in fact what I might need to do, we might need to rotate that a little bit more. I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to go rotate, base point, R, click again, come to there, and I'm going to go a little bit further out, say like another extension of 5 mil. Oh, sorry. That was 5 degrees. I did. So I'll come to this point, and I'll go just a little bit further. And I'll come up, say, 12 mil. There's that overlap. And now I'm just going to, whoops, let's take that and copy it. Something like that. Now, what I can do is I can click on this weatherboard, I can go copy, and I can just take it from the top of the overlap of the preceding one, and then copy it to the overlap of the preceding next one, and then again. Now I can use the array tool as well, but you're getting the idea. Okay, something that looks like that. Now that's how you've got your that's how you get your weatherboard look. So when I come back to my drawing, it looks something like that. Okay. Now, next thing is baseboards. So you can see down here, you've got your weatherboards, and then you've got these baseboards here. There is fixed to 30 by 75 meter cleats. That's okay. We can just determine a baseboard size there. So in fact, there should be one more, I think. Something like that. I'm not happy how these are sort of coming into my building too. Okay. Now, back to here. So these baseboards are just rectangles. That's all they are. And then these straps here, these are steel straps that are wrapping around the stumps. And then you've got this thing here, which is an ant cap, which is essentially like a steel cap that goes on top of the pile to stop termites and ants from egressing into the building and rotting and eating the timber and other materials. So, which I think is covered in one of the Build Some videos that I linked in an earlier class wrap up. So I'll come back to here, and it's really quite simple. I'm going to take a pen 70, start from the center, come out, come down, say 20 mil, hit escape, click once, click twice, mirror from the center of the stump, okay, like that. Now the straps, what I'll show you there is I'm going to use my hatch layer, and those straps, I'm just going to eyeball it, be somewhere around here, offset, say 30 mil. Okay, and I'm going to hatch, click in there, click again, and I'm just going to take a hatch, which is Ainsel 32. The angle will be 45, so it's straight down. The size will be 0.5, or actually 1. Okay, so it looks something like that, and I'll go back to my details, and that looks pretty good, and that looks similar to that. In fact, it might need to be a little bit smaller than 30 mil. But that's okay for now. One thing I will do though is I'm going to turn the transparency of that hatch back to 0. So that way those lines are pretty sharp. Same with the earth hatch here. It's got a transparency of 50%. I'll bring it back to say 30% transparent. So it makes those lines just a little bit darker, especially when I look on the sheet. That looks a bit better now. Okay, so the last thing I'll show you here is the windowsill. Now there's really no fine art to this. There's a few things you could do here. We could go get a block from online from a manufacturer, or we could just eyeball it, or it could be done by a consultant that's doing shop drawings, or a fabricator that's doing shop drawings, and they could send them to us. There's many different ways you could do it. In our essence here, I'm just going to eyeball this as best as I can, and the actual construction of the window frame, the window sill, how that fits with your bottom plate and your sill plate and your lintel and whatnot is going to be covered in your construction class. Here we're just sort of showing you how to actually draw this. So what you've got essentially is you've got your window framing on the inside. You've got the window sill, which sits somewhere around here with a bit of a profile, and then you'll have your glazing itself, and your glazing will probably be about here. And then what you're seeing here, these lines are these profile lines, but in projection. That's why you're seeing that, and then you're seeing the plasterboard go up on the other side. That's what you're looking at there. So I'm going to do the best job I can just to sort of eyeball that. So this is just a pen or a window 18 I'll use. So, and I'm going to go polyline, and that's 50 mil. So I'm going to come in, say 25. I'm going to go up, say 12. That's 20. So we'll come across 40. Come down. Come to about there. Come down about 60. Line that up. Okay, something like that. So there's my profile, give or take. And in fact, I might just bring this further back in a little bit. I'll bring that back in, say 15 mil. All right, so now what I can do is I'm going to move these polylines. Well, in fact, I am going to trim those polylines. To be something like that. So there's my glazing line. My glazing line I'm going to make much thicker. I'll make that, say, a pen 70. I'm going to up this to a pen 35. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this skirting board, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to rotate it and mirror it. And this time I'm going to delete the source object. Yes. I'm going to bring that up to there. This looks something like that. Not too bad. I'll have to play around with line weights, but that looks alright. Whoops, should be the other way. What am I doing? In fact, I think I could just have taken this one down here. That's alright. Yep, there we go. Now I might want to, I'm playing around a little bit with line weights. I'm not sure what works and what doesn't. But a couple other things I need to do now is I'm going to make these line weights lighter. I'm going to make these 0.13. Okay. And I'm going to draw another few lines. And same there. And I'm going to make all of these 0.13. And the reason for that is because they are further back in the distance. They're in projection and they're on the other side of the window that we're not cutting. So I go back to the details and I do that. Now we can barely see all of that, but it's giving us a good idea of, you can definitely tell that window is the thickest item being cut because the glazing will be like, you know, maybe 8 mil, something like that. Depending, it's probably not double glazed, so it's probably like a single 6 or 8 mil piece of float glass. Or safety glass, and then you've got the other items in projection. We have our windowsill and our window framing. So it looks something like that. Very quick, very rough, but it gets us sort of in the ballpark. Right, so I'm happy with the way that this has come up. I'm completed with detailing up my drawing here. So I'm going to go back to my example, and you'll see here it's time to add some text. So these are called multi-leaders. It's essentially text with an arrow. That's that simple. One thing that we'll notice for starters is that they're all in a row. So you can see they're all aligned, that they're relatively spaced apart, and that the spaces apart are, generally speaking, they're about the same distance apart. Not always, but most of the time they are. Different offices have different ways of doing annotations and multi-leaders, and it really varies. This is just one example. So if we look over here on the roof, the wall to ceiling or the wall to roof detail, same sort of thing again. They're relatively spaced apart. Some are closer than others, but one thing is for sure is that they are definitely all aligned vertically, and even on angles, they all tend to change angles at the same time and then keep that same distance. again, there's no real hard and fast rule here. I mean, when I first started drafting, I thought this was like a rule that you had to abide by, but it's definitely not. Although it does just make the drawings read much easier when they are uniform. If they're all sort of crisscrossing and at different angles, it can be quite disjointing when you're looking at the drawing. Now, in order to get these like this is actually far simpler, and unfortunately in CAD it's far more, let's say, primitive than what it is in some other softwares. So what I've done is I've gone to my annotation text layer, as you've used before, AN text, and I'm simply just going to draw a line somewhere. Let's go somewhere around there. What I am going to do is I'm going to go to my details sheet, zoom out, and I can see there's that line that I just drew there. Double click into the space, into the drawing space, and I'm going to draw another line from, say, just here, and go straight up to, say, somewhere around there. Hit escape so I can see that line there, and that will be fine. I think the other thing I need to do is maybe just draw one up here somewhere like that. Hit escape, get out of model space, go back to my model, and then I can see those lines here. They are merely just guides. It's just so I know that if text goes beyond that point, it's going to be cut off from the sheet. And we know that basically you don't want to go any lower than this. We'll end up deleting all of these eventually. So let's start with just one annotation. So let's go timber windowsill with deep groove. Or we'll go this one. We'll use the 155mm square edge weatherboards with 150mm cover. So we'll go back to CAD. Okay, I'm going to go up to annotate, and then we've used multi-line text, we've used dimensions, and multi-leaders is the next one. So multi-leaders work like everything else. You have different variances of sizes depending on the scale of the drawing. Because remember that you always want the text, once you print the piece of paper, you want the text to all be the same size, but they were different scale drawings. So the text size at 1.5 for a 1 to 5 drawing is different to a 1 to 100 is different to a 1 to 50 drawing. This will become more evident when we see these details right next to each other a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to pick the text, which is 2.5mm at 1 to 10. I'm then going to click on the multi-leader button, and it's pretty simple. It's a 2-armed multi-leader. So if I want the line to be straight, I just click once to start. I'll click once in the middle, and once on this line to end. That then prompts me where I can type in something. When I'm done, I just click off the distance, and that's now complete. Now, if I've got a multi-leader which is angular, I'd go multi-leader again. Let's say I go from here, the tongue and groove, I come up, click once, come out to here, and then type again. And I know those are going to be in alignment. And when I go back to my details, I can see how they're now starting to look. That looks already pretty good. Now, the tedious part about all this is trying to work out where you should have all of your text. So you can play around with this if you like. I'm just using a line, and I'll come down, say, 100. Or what I can do is I can take this and I can array. I can array this. So we can say rows will be, say, 10. The distance between them, 100. Oops. 100. Okay, so you can see there's 100mm between them, but I want them to go in the other direction. Come down to something like that. Now, why have I done this? It's so I can then line these up as best I can. So I'll go, okay, I'll put this on that line there. Then I know the next multi-leader can go on the next one. So it doesn't even have to be there to begin with. I can say, oh, all right, I'll do the one for installation. So I come down here so it doesn't snap to the top. Click once to start once again. And this will be installation as an example. And then I'll click on this and I'll move this up to the next line like so. I do the same thing again anytime you've got multi-leaders which are right angled or angular. So I'll copy this, and this is where it can get a little bit messy sometimes. I'll just rotate this 90 degrees, and I'd do the same thing again. I'd move them like that, and you can see how they cross over now. So I know that if I do another multi-leader, so what I'll do is I'm going to move this to there, move that back to there, and this way I know if I do another multi-leader and I go to there, I'm going to go from there, okay, and this one here, okay. Again, that looks like a real mess at the moment, but once I start deleting these, you can see now they're the same distance apart there, and they're 100 mil apart there. And that's the distance I did, was 100 mil. Now, will you fit all of your annotations within that space? Yeah, probably, but then you're going to have some which are going to need to be closer together, like metal strap, ant cap, baseboards. These are all relatively close together, so you may not be able to keep them at 100 mil distance. Otherwise, the arrow will be pointing at nothing. The most important thing is that your leader or your multi-leader still has to point at the element that you're referring to in the annotation itself. You can't ever get away from that fact. So with that in mind, I want you to go through now and complete the rest of these annotations, and then we'll take a look at how these annotations vary depending on the scale of the drawing. It's important to go back and forward between the sheet and model space while going through the detailing process. We've been working through this detail here, the floor and wall detail, but looking at the ceiling to roof detail and wall detail and the roof apex detail. You have to make sure that all the items that are within those viewports are captured correctly and cleanly. You notice a few items here, such as relative alignment between text on one text in one viewport aligning to the text in the next viewport, so there's some consistency there. Remember that this detail of the roof is at 1 to 5, whether the wall to ceiling detail is at 1 to 10, as is the wall and subfloor detail. The other thing to consider is that you don't want items cropped out of the viewports. And so you want to make sure that as you're going through this, you are indeed going back and forth between model space and paper space, because otherwise it will just make the process much longer than it needs to be. Where you're working in model space, you think that you finish your detail and it works really well, but then when coming to your sheet and aligning your viewport to the sheet, you just can't get it to work without some sort of modification. So that's just a tip to remember there. The other thing to remember too is around text sizes. So being 1 to 10, I've used the same text size for the roof, the wall to ceiling and roof detail as I did with the subfloor detail, which is 2.5 millimeters at 1 to 10. And notice as well, I won't go through them line by line or element by element, but note the color of my lines here, and that will give you a little bit of a hint of what line weights you should be using for these details. The one thing to consider though is the one change for the roof detail, the apex detail, is the text sizes. So in this instance, these are 2.5 millimeters at 1 to 5. Now, when you do these details in isolation, you may not notice the difference, and in fact, you definitely shouldn't see a difference on the sheet. When this is set to 1 to 5 and this is set to 1 to 10, the text between this drawing and this drawing is exactly the same size. But you'll see the difference here. If I just pick up this detail and move it, just say here, notice that the text size between the 1 to 5 and the 1 to 10 is half the size. It's a little bit hard to get the concept about this, but the main reason why this is because the 1 to 10 is half the size of a drawing that's at 1 to 5. So if this drawing here, this 1 to 5, is being blown up to be double the size of a 1 to 10, then it makes sense that this text size would also double in size, giving it the same size as the 1 to 10 detail. The point is at the end of the day, it's easy to tell whether you're doing it right or wrong, because when you go to your viewport, which now I've moved that drawing, it's out of the viewport, I'll move that back. Yep, okay. The text between here and here should be the same size. That's important to remember. A couple of other little tips that I can leave you with as you go through the detailing process. The roof cap, the sheet roof cap is simply just a line, which is a pen drawn at 0.35. The nails in the rafter clamps are simply just pen line weight 0.9 with a couple of circles that mimics, something that looks like a nail. The nail plate here is a hatch pattern, so this rectangle here has just got a hatch pattern in it, and that hatch pattern is just dashes that are staggered, and then you can see on my ribbon the type of settings that I've applied to that hatch pattern. Again, it really is what looks best and what is best fit for purpose. You've got your dash lines that denote your your damp-proof course or your waterproof membrane. Going to some of the other details, there's not much extra to really add in here that you haven't already done in the subfloor detail. The only other item of note is the cornices for your junction between the ceiling and the roof plaster, the wall and the ceiling plasterboard, which is simply just a creation of two arcs or two circles that have been trimmed off and then offsetted to give the thickness of that element. There are two main methods to complete schedules, whether they're wall schedules, door schedules, or window schedules, and that is either graphically or in a tabulated form. The example that we've got in Assessment Task 1 is a graphical form and is really a very simple drawing. What we have here very clearly is our window that we've got in the workshop and the door type that we've got in the workshop. And because the window type is the same for both windows, you only need to show that represented once, as long as you denote somewhere that this graphical representation and its dimensions relate to window 1 and 2. With door number 1, there is only one door, so that is a really easy process. The only other item to note here is that this drawing is the odd one out in that its scale is 1 to 20. So really the process to do this, I'm sure you'd be able to figure it out on your own, but just for argument's sake, I'm going to take a door and the window block, and I'm just going to simply copy these across to somewhere around, say, here. Then it really is a case of I'm going to take the two lines from our floor and our finished floor level and our finished ceiling level, and I'm going to also copy them across something like this. And I'm going to just leave that as is for the minute. The next thing I'm going to do is, now on the example, this was flipped around where the window was first and the door was second. And really, ultimately, it doesn't really matter too much which way they are, but I'll flick it around just as it is in the example. And what I'll do now is I'll go to a new sheet that I've made, which is the window schedule, window and door schedule. And already you can see that I was already modeling somewhere close to that area, which is helpful. But to make sure, I'm just going to ensure that I've got what I want on screen. Change my scale to 1 to 20. And then much like the example, I want to cut off the dash lines. I want to cut off the dash lines somewhere around here and here. So I'll go back to my CAD file. I am currently in model space, but within the paper space. So I'm just going to draw one line there and one line there. This way I can trim these elements accordingly. I'll remove those lines, and I'm pretty happy with the way that looks currently. So I'll double click to go back out into paper space, and I'll go back to my model space. And really now it's just a case of dimensioning these up, but making sure that we use the dimensions that are fit for purpose. And in this case, we don't have a 1 to 20 dimension, or at least I don't in my file, which is fine for now. So I'm going to use the 1 to 50. And I'm going to go from one area, from one to another, and then down to my ground. Oops, I'll do it again. From there to there, and then like so. And I'll move these further across. Okay, I won't do the door. You get the idea of what to do here. And then the last item is to use some text. So I do have a 2 mil at 1 to 20, which is fine. And I'll add my text box here. Oh, I'll do it again. So in this case, window 01, 02, and then I'll type in the type of window there. Making sure, of course, that I am on the correct layer, which I am not. Make sure that's on my text layer. Okay, and you can see how that's already appearing over here. A couple of other items for you to note in the window and door schedules. So the sizing of the window, 900 by 1140. Now in some of the other tutorials, or perhaps you might have a slightly different size, that's 1200. That's fine. Just whatever you're getting from your block, I just want you to represent down here. The difference of 60 mil is no big deal. And then the only other item to consider on here is that you have the same information denoted for the door, and that's done correctly. And that's really your door schedule completed. Like I said, this is a very simplified door and window schedule, and as the course goes on, you start doing working drawings, you'll get into a lot more detail around what that looks like. But you can see that within CAD, it's as simple as just copying and pasting the blocks over to another area and denoting them out for their own separate drawing. The last item that I want to go through is general notes. So on the cover page, you've got just a sheet of notes, and these are taken from a standard set of residential notes that you can use for drawing sets. Now, these are always changing depending on what the building code is. These are now a little bit out of date, but to be honest with you, they will be relatively close. I mean, you can see the original issue was 2004, and this was revised as of 2017. Now, there will be newer versions available, but they won't be too dissimilar. But so for the time being, this serves this is completely fine for the purposes that we require. You'll find these general notes under general notes for residential works in the resources folder under assessment task 1 on student web. And really here, it is a little bit of a tedious task, and AutoCAD has gotten slightly better at this over the years, but it is a case of you taking this, copying it, and pasting it into AutoCAD. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. If I zoom out and I come over to here, you can see my residential works are broken up here. Now, what I have done is, as I've copied and pasted them in, I wanted to make sure that they are, firstly, all in capitals, and secondly, I wanted to make sure that they were formatted correctly. So you might find that when you copy from the PDF file into AutoCAD, you may not get them right the first time. It may require you to do a little bit of editing, so just look between the example and AutoCAD. Sometimes you might find a little bit of luck if you were to take the PDF file and copy and paste this into a Word document first, and then from the Word document into AutoCAD. Sometimes the formatting sticks better in there. Either way, it's just a little bit of it's a little bit time consuming, but at the same time, once you've got these, you've now got these for good, and you can continue to use these again and again on other projects. The way that I've gotten these 3 blocks of text, honestly, there is nothing that smart about it. It's really just a case of going multi-line text, and I'll go something like this. I'm just choosing an arbitrary size, copying some text in there, and then what I will do, I'll just get out of there quickly. So there's my text, which I need to change the size to, well, to be honest, you can change it to any size. I'm going to go 2.5 at 1 to 50. Okay, something like that. Or I might go 2.5 at 1 to 100. It doesn't really matter what scale you make the text, because on your cover sheet, you'll see here the cover sheet acts like one big viewport. So if I click on this, you can see there's the big viewport. And this is something that students commonly get confused with, is that for the cover sheet, this text is not on the page. This text is in the model space. So I can double click in here and move around just like I can anything else. There's my project there. And you can see my scale is set to 1 to 100. But ultimately, you can set it to any scale as long as it matches the text that's in here. And you see now I've just cooked the text, so I'll go back, I'll go 1 to 100, and I can move it like so, like I would with any other text. It is a case then of knowing, okay, if I like the width of that text, I'm just going to copy this text across, have 2 and 3 columns of text, and then just making sure that I edit it appropriately. I can always change the column width here. You can see I can click on that triangle and drag it. I've just clicked once and moving my mouse dynamically to change the width of the text. But then you'd want to make sure that you've got it right for the first one, because when you copy the second and the third, it's just easier to do it that way. If I move this one, it's hard for me to sort of grasp, oh yeah, how much did I move it in? Was it this much or was it this much? Or yeah, it's hard to know. So I would refrain from doing that. Make sure you get your column size size right, and then copy the column size over. Within the text editing ribbon, if I double click into one of these text boxes, the text editor is pretty generic. It's not too dissimilar to what you'd see in any other software. So, you know, select all, make bold, make italic, strike through. One thing that does save you a lot of time though is this text you can see is capitalized as it would be in a normal document, punctuated correctly. But I've got this little button here which allows me to change the character case. So I can just click on this and go straight to uppercase, and that's done. The other one too is around paragraphs and the way that they're bulleted, or whether they're numbered or anything like that. And this is where you might find that, you know, I might move back where it says BCA part 3.6, etc. I might move it back like that, and then I'll click on bulleted and numbering, and I'll go bullet, and you can see it's changed to a bullet point. Same with this here. I'll make sure that this is bulleted correctly, and you see that's now done. So like I said, it's not that hard to do. In fact, it's not hard to do at all. It's just a little bit time consuming, but once you do it once, it is very much worth your time, because you can copy these to basically every other assignment that you'll be doing for working drawings at your time here during the course. So finally, you've come to the end of the assignment, and it's time to plot or print or PDF your set of drawing sheets. There's a couple of steps here to consider, most of which has been set up for you in the template file, but I'll give you a little bit of an insight into the background processes of what's occurring here, and two different options to plot out your drawings should you have problems with one or the other. First thing is terminology. AutoCAD tends to use the term plot. I think that's because old printers used to be called plotters when it came to drawings. I'm not 100% sure on that. But, you know, the simple terminology these days is, how do I PDF my drawings? Or how do I print my drawings, or whatever. But look, the process is generally the same, in which you want to usually save your drawings to a PDF form first, and then from a PDF you would open that up and then print it from the PDF file there within. The rationale for that is because predominantly these days, I personally can't remember the last time I printed a set of drawings to transmit them to a subcontractor or a consultant. It's always digitally transmitted. So I've made absolute surety that I have my drawings set up and completed exactly like the example set, or as close to as possible, and that I've not omitted any detail. All the detail I need from the title blocks themselves, all the writing in the title blocks, any extra text that was in the title block, all the drawings are detailed right, hatched right, are definitely to the right scale, have used the correct text sizes, the correct dimension sizes. There are no details missing. Everything is done and dusted. I'm happy with what we've got. What I want to do now is I want to print these out to a PDF. This is not a step you have to go through, but it's one I'm going to show you, which is the page setup manager. So I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to go to modify. And what this is essentially is making sure that each of the pages are set up correctly. So when they do print or plot, whichever terminology you want to use, that it's done right. So in my instance here, I am using an A3 landscape setup, which the plotter name, or the printer name, is Bluebeam PDF. Now, Bluebeam is a type of PDF viewer that I personally use, and it's used a lot in the architectural construction industry. But in here, you may not have Bluebeam PDF, so you can always use a number of different PDF writers that are available on the market. There is Adobe PDF, there is Qt PDF, there is Microsoft Print to PDF, Nuance PDF, many different versions you can use, but I would attempt to give it a shot just with whatever is currently set up in your file. And if you are having issues, come into your page setup and just change the type of plotter or printer that's assigned there, and use some sort of PDF setup. The next thing you'll notice is underneath of that, you've got the paper size, which pretty obviously is an A3 page here. What are you plotting? You're plotting the layout, the offset, leave these as is, and the scale is 1:1. The reason why the scale is 1:1 is because we have set these scales up manually. We don't want the print to actually scale. We just want it to print an A3 sheet just as you see it there. On the right hand side, you have the plot style, or the pen assignments, which we're using Autodesk Monochrome, and we're displaying the plot style. You've got the quality, which normal is fine. and then the plot or print options, which is you print or plot the object line weights, of course, plot transparency, plot with plot styles, plot paper space last, and then the drawing orientation, whether it's landscape or portrait. You can always click on the preview button to get an idea of what that's going to look like when you go to print, and when you're done with the example or the preview, you simply click the little X button in the top left hand corner, and that brings back up the dialog box. So I'll click cancel for now because I haven't touched anything, and close. And what I'm going to do is there's two ways that we can plot. So the first way is I'm going to right click on one of these sheets and I'm going to click on plot, and it's going to bring up basically that exact same thing again, the sheet setup, except this time I'm just going to click OK, and it's going to run that system, and my printer, my Bluebeam PDF, is going to ask me where I want to save it. So I'll save it on the desktop, and I'm just going to call it like 01 just as an example, and I'll click OK, save, give that a second, and there we go. It's now opened up in the PDF viewer, now completed. But it's only the one sheet. Now this is important to note because there are some instances where you want to print a whole batch of sheets at once. Sometimes you will only want to do one. For a drawing set of only 4 sheets like this, you generally will just print them all at once and you'll send them off to the builder or whoever is putting it together, or to the council. Other times you might have a drawing set of like 20, 30, 60, 100, 200 pages of drawings, and it just doesn't seem, it's just not suitable to update one drawing and then need to rebatch the whole lot. You generally will do it sheet by sheet. So each individual sheet is its own file that's filed away. So that's the reason why you have those two options, because it's not always a one size fits all. So what I'm going to do this time is, if I have an issue, what I can do is I can continue to plot these one by one, and then I can go to Google and just go to some sort of combined PDF tool and combine all 4 pages together, keeping in mind that you must submit one PDF with all 4 files for the assignment. The other way to do it is to use what's called batch plot, and in order to activate that, I'm just going to type that in my command bar, batch plot, and I get a little dialog box that looks like this. So what you can see here, firstly, is that it is publishing to PDF. Make sure that you select as publishes to PDF. The next thing you're going to get is every view and every sheet in the CAD that is open in CAD at the moment. You must remember that it's not just going to have this file, but any file that's open. So if I had another file open up here, like some blocks or a random CAD file, it's going to show in here. So I need to make sure that my sheets are taken care of. And that's why I'm looking at here. You see, it even tries to plot the actual CAD file itself, which is rarely useful. But underneath of that, you'll see the icon for the little sheet, and it'll see the file name of the AutoCAD file. For me, this is class 7. I have mine broken up by class. And then you'll say workshop, then 00 cover sheet, 01 plan elevation section, 02 details, 03 window schedule. If I want to include something or exclude it, so in this case I want to exclude something, I'll just click on, say, the actual CAD file itself, which I no longer need, and then I'm just going to click on this little minus red button just here, and that removes that drawing from the set. I've also, what I can do then is I can include a plot stamp if I want, a number of copies, whether it publishes in the background. To be honest, I'm just going to leave the rest of this for now. I'm not going to touch it. I've got the sheets in the order I want. If I needed to change them, I can always click on one of these lines and move it up or down in the sequence if it's incorrectly displayed. If there are any other CAD files or CAD file sheets in here, click on them and remove them. So you're left with just the 4 in order. Once that's done, I'm going to click publish. And again, it's going to prompt me to where I want to save it. I'm going to save it over the top of an example I have. I'll say yes. Do I want to save the current set of sheets? I think you can say yes if you like. You can say no. It doesn't really matter too much, especially for a project of this size. Once that's done, you can see that it's now plotting in the background. You can choose to close that. It doesn't really matter too much. It really is just reminding you that that's going on. So generally, depending on the size of the CAD file, that can be a long process. So I would normally, go away, get a coffee, get a drink, something like that, and let it do its thing. If you try and use CAD World's plotting, it can be a little bit laggy, has the risk of it freezing. So generally speaking, just let it do its thing. So I think that's now done. I'm going to open up my Windows Where are we? There we are. Class 7. There's the file. Double click on it. And there's the complete file. So sheet 1, sheet 2, or sheet 2 there, and sheet 3. All done correctly as per the example. And that is my assessment complete. From here, I'll take my CAD file. Remember to rename the CAD file or rename the PDF file as per the assessment instructions with your initials and your student number, and upload this combined PDF file and the completed CAD file to the Dropbox for assessment task 1, and you're now done.